Hey guys, Chad here from Take It or Leave It, here to talk to you today about a little film called Talk to Me. Here's the synopsis. When a group of friends discover how to conjure spirits using an embalmed hand, they become hooked on the new thrill until one of them goes too far and opens the door to the spirit world, forcing them to choose who to trust, the dead or the living. Alright, let's get right to it. Let's get to the pros and the cons, starting with the pros. First off, the pre-title card 5-minute opening sequence perfectly encapsulates the tone, feel, and energy of most of the film. We'll talk more about the tone in a bit. And it doesn't hurt that this sequence is intense as all F and left me 100% intrigued and pumped to find out what the hell that was all about. And it was in this sequence where I noticed that the musical score and the soundtrack, and very importantly, the sound mixing is phenomenal in this film. They made the fascinating decision to seemingly mix the score and the soundtrack in such a way that they would seamlessly weave back and forth, such that I couldn't tell when the score ended and the soundtrack began. I thought this was a really cool choice, and it really helped with the pacing and the flow, transitions, and it just generally kept the energy of the film up. And we gotta get into the performances because the acting in this film across the board is top tier. And it was cool to see such great performances from several unknowns who I assure you after this film we'll see a lot more of. And it was a really risky move to have so many people have their own respective possession sequences. But luckily the filmmakers knew what they were doing because the actors are clearly talented enough and get to show their versatility in these possession scenes in particular. And while the individual performances are fantastic, I gotta hand it to the cast as a whole because the ensemble cast had great chemistry and the social interactions at parties/seances seemed truly authentic. And in the vein of authentic social dynamics and interactions, this film had genuinely funny moments, not jokes, just funny moments between humans that are funny and just relatable. If Kevin Feige is listening, please take notes, man. And the film captured a lot of teenager and young adult dynamics and stresses and concerns and social scenarios very, very accurately. So much so that it took me back to that high school headspace, and I ended up having a ton of sympathy for these characters, even when they're to blame for some of the shit that they get themselves into. And now moving on to some of the plot and fear-related elements, I thought it was a brilliant move to take the It Follows approach regarding this embalmed hand in the spirit world, in which the rules as we understand them are established, but the origin/history of the scary thing in question is mostly unaddressed and speculated at best. Seriously, if they ever have another scene where they go, oh hey look, I found this website and it talks about the history of the demon or the ghost or the alien or whatever the hell it is, dude, never again. We're past that. Never again. So kudos to the filmmakers for avoiding that mistake. And as far as scares go, I really appreciated the lack of jump scares. The film instead focuses on creep factor and disturbing, visceral, and assaulting visual horror. You know, that Hereditary-esque horror that's not hiding itself, it's right in your frickin' face and forcing you to look at it. That kind of terrifying, assaulting horror. And while this film is not nearly as scary as Hereditary, I still appreciated the style of horror that it was going for. And the film provides some world building and even lore that I did not expect it to do, but actually really enjoyed. In fact, there's a sequence that's very reminiscent of the quick cut shots of hell in Event Horizon, and I absolutely adored these horrifying scenes. And I rarely say this because normally I think that less is more is the better strategy to go with, but I enjoyed those scenes so much that I think I could have even used one or two more of those sequences. Yeah, that would have been nice, but I'm not going to penalize it for it. And the editing and the cinematography is fantastic. It gets particularly creative during the possession scenes, in particular when the camera moves with the contorting possessed teen in a very Leigh Whannell style. It really accentuates the violence that the possessed teen is experiencing in that moment. And be ready for some isolated gore here and there because it's effective when it pops up, and the makeup and prosthetics department department must be applauded for this. And lastly, for the pros, the ending is quite unexpected and very clever, I thought, and I respect that the filmmakers knew when to cut to black. But now on to the cons. So you'll notice there are only like 4 or 5 cons that I have here, but I will say a couple of them definitely hold some weight. The first is that there are 2 particularly noticeable and opposing tones to this film, and the film abruptly jerks the wheel back and forth in between both of these tones. And there was this resulting jarring whiplash effect that I really struggle with. I know it's easier said than done, but I feel like this film could have benefited from walking a tightrope between these 2 tones, at least more often than it ended up doing. And while the third act certainly had no trouble keeping my attention, it did feel unwieldy and overstuffed and hard to follow considering its fast pacing. And generally speaking, I was pretty confused in the last half of the film for a couple of reasons. First off, while some rules are established, like the 90 seconds or less rule, other rules are very vague and seemed inconsistent, and I was struggling to follow how or why one action results in a particular outcome, rather than a different outcome. And second, there's a spirit or ghost that the protagonist trusts, but they felt potentially untrustworthy to me at least. So I didn't know if the focus of the film was, quote, should this ghost be trusted? Or if the focus of the film was, yes, trust the ghost. The point is, are you willing to do what the ghost is telling you to do? That's the point. So I was really distracted for the second half of the film trying to sort this out in my mind. Also, there's a social media element to the film, in particular for the first half, but I thought there was going to be a little bit more to that, and instead it felt ditched halfway through. And lastly, in the first act, a scene involving a wounded kangaroo lacks anything resembling subtlety. I literally thought to myself, I wonder if this will come back into play later in the film.
That's a mystery.
This film definitely has elements of It Follows, Hereditary, Bodies, 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 The Sixth Sense, The Invisible Man, and Insidious. And with all that being said, I'm going to give Talk to Me an... Hold on, everybody just chill out for a second, okay? We got to talk about something. See, when I recorded everything that you've just heard, that was after my first time watching this film. And as you can see, I definitely had some issues with some of the storytelling and some confusion about the rules and the different dynamics and the inconsistencies that I saw. And I was willing to give the film and the filmmakers the benefit of the doubt. You know, sometimes you just have that gut feeling where you're like, I think it might be me. I just need to see it again. And, you know, those gaps will get filled in. And it's not them. It's me. And most of the time, I'm right on that. However, I saw the film a second time and oof, I think I was wrong. Because having seen it twice now, I feel really confident in saying that I don't think this frickin' movie makes any sense. But before I fly off the handle, let's just break down what my problem is. My main problem, or at least a big problem that I have, is I don't understand what the point of this film is. But why? Why don't I understand that? Well, I think it's heavily due to the fact that I don't understand the rules, the nature of the spirits and the spirit world, and our characters' understanding of these rules and dynamics. And why don't I understand? Well, the first reason could be that the Australian accents in this film are pretty thick, and the dialogue is spoken sometimes quickly and softly, in which the information might have been said, but I didn't quite pick it up. Reason 2 could be that I just haven't gathered and put together all of the pieces of the puzzle yet. Or the third reason could be that the writers failed to address these necessary elements. Now, I've seen this movie twice, and I'm more confident than ever that it's the third option. This is the writer's fault. Last night after seeing the movie, I went down the rabbit's hole looking up explainer videos on this film, and even those videos are riddled with speculation, assumptions, and presumptions, and opinions that are paraded as facts. The explainer videos can't even make sense of this movie. Here are some questions I have that I've designed to be non non-spoiler, but that illustrate why I'm so confused and so frustrated by this. They're in no particular order, and I'm just gonna rattle them off. Number 1, what does the action taken by the protagonist at the end of the film actually accomplish, and how? 2, a character's loved one gets badly wounded in the neck. Did that character just abandon that loved one? Why wasn't a paramedics called? 3, how did the actions taken by the protagonist at the end of the film occur? Were they voluntary? Involuntary? What does that tell us about the protagonist's arc? 4, and buckle up for this one, what are the motivations of these spirits? Is it to experience life again? Does that apply to spirits that committed suicide? Why would they want to experience life again? Is it just to bring a living spirit to the spirit world, just to toy with it? If so, why is that an incentive to them? What benefit is gained for them to desire this? From the spirit's perspective, does the thought of gaining this benefit outweigh the love for a living family member? So much so that they'd be willing to betray the living family member to get this benefit? If that's the case, is it that the benefit is so monumental, or is it that the love is somehow diminished when they enter the spirit world? And 5, referencing the synopsis here, is the film just simply posing this question: can the living trust the dead? If so, oh my god, that is so freaking boring. Are you kidding me? I don't know if the living can trust the dead. I don't even believe that we have souls, let alone the concept of the spirit world being real. So I have no way of relating to this question whatsoever. And therein lies a huge problem with this question, if it is in fact a main question at hand. There's no preconceived notion or universal acceptance or understanding of a spirit world that we as an audience can all connect with and look at each other and nod our heads like, oh yeah, this is something I always run into all the time at the office. I always wondered if the living could trust the dead. No, I have no idea what you're talking about, nor do I care, not even a little bit. The only way for you to make me care is to provide context that fleshes out the nature of the spirit world in this film and provide enough puzzle pieces for me to draw a conclusion regarding that question. And how do I know they didn't provide enough context to do this? Do I really need to go list all those unanswered questions I had from a minute ago? Do I need to do that again? If the context was there, then these questions would have answers such that I could start interpreting and drawing my own conclusions. And you might be thinking, well, Chad, what the hell, man? I mean, part of your pros was the fact that this went the It Follows route and only provided rules and no history or origin or anything like that. That's true, but the thing that works with It Follows is the fact that there's no preconceived notion of what the hell the follower is. The filmmakers for It Follows are just like, hey guys, this is an entity, it's out there, here's some rules, that's it, good luck. They're not banking on us having any prior knowledge or understanding or preconceived notion about what this thing is. And if the Talk to Me filmmakers are posing the question of can the living trust the dead, then they are banking on us having a preconceived notion that we're going to bring in with us into the film. And that was a very presumptuous mistake on their part, in my opinion. I stand by that pro as long as the filmmakers for Talk to Me end up providing enough information for us to try to answer that question. And from my perspective, having seen it twice, it's pretty damn clear that they do not. But I have to emphasize that even if this context was provided, could this question be more boring and uninteresting? Here, let's take an example. Let's take my favorite film of all time, Whiplash, and use that to illustrate my point. Here's an example of a very, very, very uninteresting question that Whiplash could have posed. Did Andrew end up playing the perfect drum solo? Holy shit. I mean, shallow at best. But what about this question instead? Does Andrew think the cost incurred for playing the perfect drum solo was worth paying? That is infinitely more interesting, and thank God that's the question that Whiplash ended up posing. Whereas Talk to Me's question of can we trust the dead is pretty much on par with the hypothetical lame Whiplash question I just posed a second ago. So for me, although this is doubtful considering I saw the film twice, the best case scenario is that they provided the context and I just missed it. But I still think the main question at hand is utterly boring, and that's not great for a best case scenario. But listen guys, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong in the comments section and provide evidence, and let's discuss it. Sincerely, please answer those questions I posed. I'm more than willing to admit that I totally missed something and even come out with a follow-up video to this video discussing my newfound perspective of the film. But as of right now, everything I've just mentioned has radically changed my opinion of this film. And with all that being said, I've got to give Talk to Me a 5 out of 10. But those are just my thoughts. Take it or leave it. What do you guys think? Seriously, let me know down in the comments section if I'm wrong on this, or let me know if I'm spot on. Let's talk about it. And as usual, guys, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I really appreciate it. Don't be afraid to hit that like and subscribe button. And until next time, I'm Chad from Take It or Leave It, and I'll check you later.
Check you later. Check you later.
Hey, man, get off my case.
Oh, man. Chicks don't want to hear that shit.